And so despite what, say, President Trump can do or not do, there's a much deeper strata, right, of rot. Right? And I put it another way before we did this podcast, and I put it in, how can there be, where are the men who are stopping all of this desecration in our streets? I understand why a lot of police people are resigning in droves right now. Yeah, and that comes into this question. But then forget the police. Where are the men with the fucking pickaxe handles coming out and going, not on my fucking watch, you don't? Why did people vote for Obama and other Democratic leaders? Because the Democratic Party is but another, in a weird way, right? Because remember, the real elite that was conservative, we just showed, was pushed back against. They're racist. They have no, they've moved off, just like the earlier continental elite. The rich elite have pulled up the ladders, don't care about us. Why should they? So the Democratic Party thought the way was open for them to do what they're doing. And hopefully we've touched on that they are really also administering to this rot by which the whole of Western civilization topples, right? But even other questions like, why is it that people, when they hear the rational truth or they come across the rational information, don't respond to it? You see, I'm looking at a lot of different things. Even despite its prevalence in today's world. Why didn't they listen to a Milo? Why don't they listen to a Jordan Peterson? Why don't they? There's some of the most eminent people you could name who've talked about what's wrong. Not just a Kevin McDonald, but you've had Pat Buchanan, a lot of very eminent people. Nobody's listening to them. Right? Why don't people question, what lies behind the headlines? And why don't people realize that, we have a problem with the jihadists? Why do you have to explain these very simple things? Why don't they realize that the Western media is totally working for KGB Central? So why are people closed-minded? Why do they get so easily indoctrinated? Why is it different in the West that, as we've said 3 times now, why do we embody, like the Puritans did, certain cultural memes that work against our culture, work against the small demographic we are? How has nobody worked that out, even when the evidence is right there to show you this is eating us up from inside? Let's stop believing in this nonsense. Why is it that America's full of people who don't give a fuck about Western culture? What happened in the past in Europe, who their forefathers were. Is that of another kind of feminization? Why are they ashamed of being white when everybody else is only interested in telling you what you can't do and what you can't believe, but nobody else comes under that hammer? Why is it that the only change that people are interested in is another fucking, worse totalitarian paradigm replacing the previous one? It's just updating tyranny. Is that the change of an Obama? That's what we all bite down on? We seem to be unable to focus on what is actually cancerous. The terms like feminization will get you hanged when you're meaning in a perfectly clear context. Because women can be masculinized. How many times do one have to say it? And it's a good thing we still got those kinds of people. Your Ann Coulters and others. But what we are seeing right now, as I pointed out in the article, right, is, look, if there's the death of real masculinity, and it's been eroded for centuries, that's a big problem. That's not ever going to reach the headlines. And it is what people are preferring not to discuss, not to even think about. And you can say, hey, it came in through the New Age movement. It's coming in through the media. It's coming in through other religious paradigms like ecumenicalism. It's coming through the Jesuits. It's coming through the Freemasonic lodges, who are very ecumenical as well. It's coming, but see, look, the masculine man, okay, let's define it. Masculine man does not sit at the feet of a guru for too long. Right? Masculine man does actually care about his environment, and that includes nature, which the urbanized, feminized type couldn't care less about. Masculine people do worry about the voting system and who they're electing. And they don't want half-wits, dole bums, moochers, malingerers, blow-ins, foreigners voting. And for very clear, obvious reasons why they would not want that. They don't want people who are so deeply self-deceived making the rules for normal, rational people. And more importantly, the masculine man is always aware of how to deal with evil, always learning from the reality principle, because he hasn't run away from it like other people have when they regress into the pleasure principle or magical child thinking and all of that. And the masculine person is individualistic enough to not only to doubt what is on the surface. In other words, he knows wherever the herd is moving, I must move in the opposite direction. And I look beneath the surface and I don't concede. I don't go along and conform. That's all masculine, dispositions. Whatever the crowd believes, I disbelieve on sight. But we're not being taught in our schools. Gustave Le Bon is probably not on the curriculum of most schools and colleges, and bloody well should be if we were living in a masculine world. Because we need to know about crowd consciousness and the tremendous evil that it is. We need to know that society is a cult. And do I think I want to sit there and go, yeah, let's sit down and debate where the cult's going next then? You know who you're going to be sitting down with? Those who are ready to saw off your head. That's where the next culture is going. So the masculine type is asking the right questions. Can kids, for instance, or teens be weaned away from their technology, their gadgetry? Can that happen? That's what a masculine person will ask. And if so, and if not, what will that mean? They'll ask deeper questions than any headline will ever go, no matter how many thousands of years you wait. Like, can parents cease being disciples of adultism? Can the female criminal history of the world finally be told? And if not, what will happen then? Right? Can human inauthenticity ever be ended? Can nature ever be respected in a true way, lovingly? Can animals be truly cared for and learned from? Like I said, in a political level, can voting go through a radical change that actually supports the West as opposed to going against it? Can foreign subsidy ever be curtailed, where we're funding our enemies to come and destroy us? Can communism ever finally be intellectually and physically countered? Why has it taken so long? It doesn't have one iota of a fucking platform to stand on. Why is it still around? Can the media be made responsible? In other words, can anything ever change for the better? Feminized types don't even ask these questions. And if they do, it's while cutting the bagel. 1.5 seconds later, they're on to something else. There's never any other, and it's the same in the schools now. None of these questions are asked, and if they are, they're like, that's dispensed answer from Communist, International Center. But the masculine person is really defined by masculinity, because they say, the truly masculine, high-born person says, and what if the answer is no? Right? They're far ahead of everybody else. What happens if all of these imperfections in society, the answer is no? What do I do then? What kind of world do I envision for the world and for myself? What does the sane person do now? What do I tell the sane person? If I have a microphone, if I have a platform, I'm talking to the sane, the last of the sane, the Morlocks are coming down the fucking street. How am I going to direct them? How am I going to save their lives? Or at least save their sanity? Can I trust myself to fulfill that role? Or is the planet completely fucking doomed to be ruled over by evil people? And if it is, again, as we said, what do I do about that? Have I got a strategy, a plan to handle that? It could be the Blade Runner form. It could be, the Bill Gates form, where you're completely surveilled in every possible, conceivable way. Because then it will come to whether you're attitudinally free, right? When every other freedom that you've been graced by from your forebears that you sold up and you didn't like, or your culture sold and didn't like, and found that like China, it's close at hand. But the time could come when all of those freedoms or liberties are actually removed. Are you still free in your mind? Do people even conceive of what that will mean? Well, read Byron's Prisoner of Chillon, because you're going to have to fucking start understanding what it means. That if you're fucking strapped to a wall in a dungeon for the rest of your life, is that the end of your life or the beginning of a new kind of life, right? This is where we're heading. These are the great existential questions. If evil dominates, but then also contemplate, if evil dominates, but evil has the seeds of its own destruction within it, what do I know about that process? And if the answer is fuck all, now might I not want to learn to find out about it? But then I have to look at evil, in a more observable way in my community. I might have to look at it in the dynamics of my family. What do I really know about that before I take it up to the mega level, right? Might you not, and if you don't know anything about it, might you not then need to study and read the men who have already done the fucking homework? The ones who ended up in the gulags? The ones who did get ostracized? And what do we even know about learning from our adversary, right? Like we said, that the greatest masculine trait is to learn to monitor the adversary, to watch through your binoculars what they're doing in meticulous detail, like they've watched you. Who's done that? Well, the world's greatest teachers are a fucking good start. But forget that, just the principle that you'll do good by learning the ways of evil. Just the principle. Oh my God. How many people do you know who've installed that? Well, not very many. Because if there were that, then you'd know right away how your enemy always brings up the past when they want to colonize your mind. It can never be, you're meant to forget it, right? Your great heroic deeds, but they're never going to let you forget of all the monstrous things you've done in the past. Isn't that happening right now? Aren't they always playing that card, the guilt card? Yeah, but you'll fall for it every time. You'll kiss their feet. Guess what? Even that's happening. But you'll do that yourself. You'll get down on all fours, unless you know that evil plays the guilt card, and I'm not going to fall for it. And if the only thing I'm going to have to lose is a fucking job, because I'm going to fucking tell you piss off, then I'm going to lose that job. But I've got enough fortitude in my masculine core to know I'm going to get another one too. If this was installed in their minds, then why are people not being able to see bullshit is bullshit? If they knew about evil's ways, why are you so easy to get offended by those people who never even address their own offenses against you? And that conversation doesn't even exist. And then, if you knew what I'm talking about, would you not then have learned by now, and your parents would have taught you, why incompetents and psychopaths and perverts are getting always to this very day the reins of power in their hands? Wouldn't your parents have taught you and your school teachers, hey, forget about politics, it's a big fucking mess, it's a lie, it's gangland. Hey, legally empower yourselves. Even up to a sort of a minor level, just know your legal empowerment, so that when you come up against a petty little governor or a petty little police chief or whatever, you have so much legal power. You're using the law, and by God, it's very, very powerful. It was always meant to be, and it still is to this day. Why aren't you using that to say, no, I'm not going to be vaccinated? No power on earth. You can't make me eat with my body. You can't make me fix a broken leg at the hospital if I don't want it fixed. And you're certainly not going to vaccinate me because I'm sovereign. And also work at, when you see a culture like in England where they don't have maybe the right free speech thing, you work to enlighten your public about it, not politically, legally. You tell them, if 100 of you guys sign this petition and we all know our legal rights, we can change the government. Lots of other things have been changed in law. Lots of other things, criminal law and other law. Well, why hasn't anybody worked in to expand England's, they're waving their fucking placards. That's fucking useless. All you're doing is putting a target on your fucking back now. They know who you are. And they'll sound the thugocracy after your ass. In fact, myself, All the things I'm just talking about now, I have advocated from the day one in my own, career, so to speak. I'm fucking notorious for it. My notoriety has waned accordingly because I espouse these things. But that doesn't change the fact of the truth of these questions. Because I know these really will get us somewhere. These are the ways out of docility. This is the way to fight the crowd mentality. This is a power that will fight the consensus, fight the crowd. The tools are already, you don't need to invent any more tools than are already been made for you. You're up against the sinister cabal. In fact, the word left, as you well know, right, means sinister, strangely, etymologically. Yeah, well, there they are. So now what you're getting now is the acid test of all the things that somebody like myself has said, right? Now you can test it for strength. Right? Before, I would not oppose you if you disagreed with all the things I've been saying for 21 years, right? No, but see, now the game has changed. Now you can test it. Now you get a vivid, full spectrum understanding of the forms of tyranny that are there, right? And now, and like in this podcast, now as we've done, you also get to understand where the weak points constitutionally are within the body politic, within Western culture, within the self, within the mind, within consciousness, within politics. And those all need to be dredged out so that people can fortify themselves. How were women used as doomsday weapons? Why are they more empathic? And how has those positive feminine traits been also co-opted and used against us? What did we lose of the aristocracy that was really good, that would have fortified the blood and fortified culture? Where did they go? Can we bring those back? There's so many things to look into. And again, this won't be, the last iteration of it, but I just was so glad that bring out the major points in this book. And I really do, urge people to buy it. Or at least listen to Kevin's analysis. Like I say, there's a lot of missing pieces and all, but there's some, when he deals with why we're living in now, it's very important to see that none of it is new. And that, the tyranny was already in the body politic, coming through doors that we would have normally thought and have been taught to think are sacrosanct. All the Puritans, the Mayflower, and all that. Yeah, these people in one way did help build what we know as America. But they also put in at the foundations of America things that would come to haunt us later on. So we take the good and the positive, and all of that, but we have to now excise the negative. And I think that's a study that is absolutely essential. And again, we've brought out Chuck Sasser, and Charles Moskowitz, all the anti-collectivists, and we've made that a huge part of our narrative. And I'll put those links below to other podcasts and interviews that are very relevant to the one we just done now.
Well, that is incredible. There's so much to think about. I'm going to definitely dive into this book. I hope we can get Kevin on at some point in the future to go over his thoughts on it. Just adds another layer of thinking to this, more pieces of the puzzle to consider. Thank you for that, Michael. That's incredible. We'll have to follow up on this down the line. And for those of our members here, thanks for tuning in, supporting the show. We've got some really good guests booked up. We're actually booked all the way up through August. Some fantastic people coming on. So we'll be diving very deep into these matters as we continue. And stay tuned here on Unslaved, guys. We'll catch you again next week. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.